back to another episode of Fast Break Live NBA Podcast. Your boy Samuel here. I got with me a guest today, my boy Kris Pursiainen of Knicks Film School. Say what's up to the people, Kris.
What's up, man? How you doing? It's a pleasure to be on the pod. Thank you for having me on. I'm excited to be here, talk hoops.
Yeah, for sure. So Kris is a Knicks fan, just as I am myself. So of course we're gonna start with some Knicks talk. How are we feeling about the game last night?
Oh man, I mean, obviously not great, right? You're not gonna come out of a loss feeling good, especially this season. Maybe last year there were losses that you could consider moral victories, and it was fine or whatever because the team really stunk. But we're playing better this year, and when we play how we did last night and give away a game like that, it's tough to be encouraged by it. I think what's important though is that I'm not too discouraged by this loss. So a lot of fans, Knicks Twitter always popping, a lot of people saying this loss sucks, whatever. And then there's a whole response of like, if you're bitching about this loss, you need to shut up because you're not the coach. And it's like, all right, well, that's we should just never debate sports again then. Okay. I don't think you need to work for a team to have an opinion on it. I think not liking someone's opinion is okay. I think I'd rather tell someone I just disagree than tell them to not voice their thoughts because they're not the coach. Like,
Yeah,
that it's a strange angle to me. I feel like all of this just represents like we still got some stuff to figure out. Like if a loss to a team like Minnesota can happen and has the fan base up in arms like this is just good proof that we're not there yet, because if we were better and we lost like that to a team like Minnesota, people are just like, oh my God, like what a fluke game. Like we are going to be fine. But there are people who are legitimately concerned by it. And I don't think it's unfair to be. I wouldn't change your projection for the season based on how this game went. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you're kind of worried about the habits that the team will develop if they keep losing close games like this, because of course, when you're like in a tight playoff race the way we are, where we're like bunched up in the middle of things and we kind of don't want to be in the play-in situation, even though that would still be beneficial, we would rather avoid it. But at the same time, we would still want to develop these winning habits and still beat teams like a Minnesota Timberwolves, who are like the worst team in the league. So like this game was like a trap game and a gimme game, and we kind of missed the mark on that. And I think there's one huge underlying factor of like what we want to like change but won't change, and since we're not the coach, we shouldn't complain about it. It's our floor general situation. Of course, we had I think it was an 18-point lead at one point, and then once we entered our starting point guard, number 6, back into the lineup, that lead kind of decimated. And then and then in the fourth again, we had like an 8-point lead before he came back in, and of course that lead shrunk away as well. So I mean,
oh yeah.
I mean, how are you feeling about just? I mean, I already know your thoughts on the whole point guard situation, but let the listeners who may not be familiar with Knicks Twitter.
In short, I think Alfred is not like evil. I think Alfred is out there just being an NBA player, trying to like get some stats up and get paid on his next deal because he has a decent opportunity to put those stats up. It doesn't go very well because he's not very good at being a starting point guard, but he's able to float above water because Julius Randle is the actual, quote unquote point guard of the team. He's the lead initiator, which lets Alfred just kind of vibe out there and take and make or miss shots and not pass to RJ. And all he has to do is just go out there, try on defense every once in a while when it matters, and pass it to Julius, and it looks like that's enough to just, all right, well, looks like we have consistency in the starting lineup. Like, yeah, it's consistently limiting. Like it's
Yeah.
consistently worse than what you could have. If Alfred was our best option at starting point guard and we were starting him and it wasn't going that well, I would be like, all right, just got to keep trying it. Maybe you try different things, try someone else, but that's your best option. All right. My problem is that I think Alec Burks, even though Tibbs likes his scoring off the bench,
Hmm.
I think Alec Burks could do a better job in Alfred Payton's spot than Payton. I think Quickly, even though he's only a rookie, would be worth starting
Even
instead
though
of
he's not a
Alfred.
floor general.
Yeah, no. He doesn't. He doesn't play like Chris Paul, even if it's a bad version of Chris Paul. So no, he's all he does is draw fouls, hit threes, create
He's a
opportunities for
chucker. He just
himself and his
chucks. Like
teammates, and tries on defense all the time. And then I don't get the other thing with Elf. My last thing I gotta say on Elf, because like I kind of made my point. Like I don't think he's good, but I don't think he's the worst. I just think there's better on this team, and we should pivot to that by now, or should have pivoted to that by now. Last thing I want to say on Elf though is about the defense. Like I feel like that's always the first argument. Well, Tibbs loves the defense, and Peyton can come in and play some pretty good defense. And then like I could pull out like a Family Guy cutscene to Alfred just getting blown by by like 40-year-old George Hill. I just it's like what are we doing here, man? I don't I I don't know. It's like this to me is like if you're gonna have ice cream 5 times a week, and it's like, all right, I'm gonna have at the 5 through 2 spots, chocolate and vanilla alternating, just good solid flavors. Maybe one of them is like a nice cookie dough with fudge to represent like Julius being special this year. But you've got 4 really solid flavors of ice cream in your rotation. And it's like, all right, well, I'm gonna have hand sanitizer ice cream as the fifth one, and since the 5 on average are like not that bad, and it's pretty good overall, like I think it would be wrong to mess with the chemistry, guys. Like really, like no, dude, like you're killing your stomach right now. Like stop force feeding yourself hand sanitizer and just take the fucking tonight dough out of the fridge, out of the freezer, and serve yourself a bowl. I don't get it. I don't get what the need is to keep going back to this.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is like some people just have this ultimate respect of like coaches' decisions, and they think like since it's the coach, they're the end all be all, and they can never be wrong. So it's like, hey, the coach thinks it's working, so what do we know? We're not coaches, but like you pull up all these advanced stats, you pull up footage, and people are still ignoring it. It's just like they're just choosing to be wrong and ignorant on purpose, and you just can't do anything about that. So, but that was a great analogy with the ice
It's
cream.
tough. Yeah, listen, analogies are all fake. You might as well just go crazy with them. Might as well just do whatever you need to do to get your point across. And I genuinely think hand sanitizer ice cream is not the worst, not the worst comparison. I just I always talk about shooters and playmakers, guys who can create pressure on the rim, on the perimeter, as guys that you want at your guard spots if you're rolling with Julius and RJ as your 1-2 punch for right now. Like, if later in the future you can get, a Donovan Mitchell or a Devin, like, okay, then that's a different conversation. That's not the conversation we're having right now. The conversation we're having right now is like, would insert retired point guard be better than Alfred? Like we're not at that star spot yet. So to me, it's just like I feel like we have options, whether it's starting D Rose and taking him out after a couple minutes like he does with Alfred to go to IQ, and then letting IQ play like 8 minutes of the first quarter. Why not try that? Why not give that a shot? Tibbs loves D Rose so much. They don't
Yeah,
want to play D Rose
exactly.
too many minutes. So
Yeah.
get him in at the start, get him in to start the game and get the offense going, because he did a great job every time he started this year in terms of pushing the pace, which is why we traded for him, really, to push the pace and to help create scoring opportunities. Let Derrick Rose start. Let him inject some like electricity into that starting offense, and then get him out of there and let IQ play and put D Rose back in, in the second or the third when we need a little scoring punch, and then let him get some run in the fourth quarter. Whether you want him to close the game based on the matchup or you're going to go IQ, Bullock, RJ, 1, 2, 3, whatever it is, let D Rose get like 25, 20, whatever, 28, 25 minutes a game. And let like the first four of them come in the first 4 minutes of the game. I don't see why not.
Yeah, and I mean also like some of the more enjoyable games. I know you went to one of the games, the Kings game, where he wasn't playing,
Yeah.
where Elf wasn't playing, and D Rose was playing. It's just like there's like
D
a
Rose, that's the game D Rose started. Yeah.
yeah,
After
there's
the
like
All
there's
Star
like an
break.
added joy factor of when Alfred is not playing. I don't know if it's just because we all have like have grown a disdain for him, but like also like the offense just like you said, it just flows better. Like there's just more electricity out there, and then we saw against that Kings team. I mean, they're one of the worst defense. They are the worst defensive team in the league, but I mean, we still put up like what was it, 140 points on them. So
Yeah, we scored. I think it was one. Might have been 141. That was
yeah, like
that was
that
a
was
fun
nuts.
night. um, to me, Derrick Rose just goes out there and it's like, all right, the standards are pretty low, to be honest, if you're going to
Yeah,
compare it to Alfred. But from a let's just go objectively. Like Derrick Rose is going to go out there. He's not going to be an elite scorer. He's going to be able to get his own shot in the mid range if he wants it. He can bring the ball up the court, obviously, and that allows Julius to get settled wherever he wants, get things started. And the other thing for me with D Rose is the finishing. Like Elf converts, what is it, 49% of his layups, like some 47. It's like it's a little more than Andre Drummond.
yeah, it's around
D
that
Rose D
46,
Rose is
47 range.
D Rose is pretty crafty, man. D Rose, I think if you play him in the starting lineup, you might see his finishing numbers get a little better because of what playing with guys like RJ and Randall can do for him. Um, I just think you see those five go out there, and it's like, all right, this game is going to start off with some nice tempo. Um, Alfred, it's like you're going out. It's like, all right, we'll see how this goes. Teams will poke each other out and see what happens, and now they're up 10 because we gave up the two threes and didn't score on that play and turned it
Yep,
over on that.
it's
I
a
just
snowball
like
effect.
I like being able to start off with that little bit of
Cushion.
fire under your ass, that that
Yeah.
that pace that D Rose brings quickly brings it too. The reason I've been advocating, so much for D Rose just in these last few minutes is because Tibbs doesn't seem to want to start quickly. But I
Yeah.
don't think he'll have a problem starting Rose.
Yeah, I don't think he would either. Moving over to the trade deadline because that was, I believe, last week it was.
Yeah, a week
Last
ago today, Thursday.
Yep. So we had a bunch of trades go down. The one that surprised me the most was probably the Vucevic one because
Oh yeah,
I knew that they were talking about moving him, but they weren't so adamant as they were with Fournier and Gordon. So I expected those two to get moved, but getting Vucevic out of there really surprised me. Which move did you which move did you not like that a team made?
oh, there were some weird ones. Um, for me, like just to run through them in my head quickly, like for Chicago, I almost want to say the Vucevic deal because it's too early to write off the product, right? But it's like Levine. Are you confident now that the Bulls acquired Nikola Vucevic that Levine isn't going to leave?
No, because they're still
No,
fighting
you're
for the
not.
playing spot.
You're not confident, and now they're 2 first-round picks and a Wendell Carter Jr. short, and less cap space to help Levine with complimentary guys. Like
Yep.
I liked that deal for them at first because I was like, all right, well, if they can make this work, this works. High pick and roll with those two is going to be fun. And hopefully the defense is going to be good enough. You have guys like Patrick Williams on that team who can help out on that end. And now we're seeing these first couple games, and those two just cannot guard anybody.
At all.
And we see teams who have like a top two of guys that cannot guard a traffic cone. But the problem is those teams are guys like Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum.
Yeah.
It's not like Levine and Vucevic and friends. um, I think that trade might go down as not looking too hot for Chicago. I loved the Aaron Gordon deal for Denver.
Yep.
I like the Fournier acquisition for Boston. I mean, I thought that out of the teams that bought, they did a decent job. But there were just I'm thinking about the I'm thinking about an acquisition I didn't like too much. That's from the buyout though, so I'm getting ahead of myself.
Yeah,
But
we'll get into buyout in a
to
minute.
think of from the deadline, a trade I definitely didn't like. I don't know why this just popped in my head, but what the Rockets like got for Oladipo after what they got for Harden. Like, are you guys serious? Are you guys actually serious, bro? You just like Kelly Olynyk, Avery Bradley, and a pick swap was the return for the guy who you passed on LeVert for. Why wouldn't you just take LeVert and trade
and
him before the deadline for more? Why'd you do this? I don't get it.
and like this goes back to a whole thing that I've been harping on this whole time with the Rockets and like the trade that they made, because I'm looking here at Brooklyn and I'm seeing like the games that like Blake has been missing and KD and Kyrie's been missing, and like who's been keeping them afloat this whole time? It's been James Harden. To myself, I'm thinking if they didn't make that move for Harden and say Philly went for Harden, Brooklyn would probably be fighting for what, like the 3, 4, 5, 6 seed, like us. Like
Yep.
they would be right there in the midst of things with us, unless they force those two to play through injuries, which they probably wouldn't. And going back to Houston, I mean, if they wanted to be cheap, like their owners were known for at this point, why not keep LeVert, who's on a very team friendly contract through like 2023? It is. And even if you don't want to move him at the deadline, that's still a pretty good player to keep on the deal for your team that you can use moving forward, especially if you
Right.
knew Oladipo wasn't going to be in your future going forward, which their GM said. They said we felt like Oladipo wasn't part of our future. So I'm like, why did you trade for him then? You just wasted assets.
Yeah, it was just strange.
Like that
It was
that
strange.
Harden trade is
Strange
probably
management.
gonna it is, and that Harden trade is probably gonna go down as probably one of the worst trades, if not the worst trade for a superstar in like one of the probably the last decade, maybe even longer, because it's honestly like a horrible return, and you can only hope those
And
draft picks turn
and the
into
fact
something.
that I know. And the Philly offer, like, what the hell? I don't know, man. Macri said from the start that Harden wants to be in Brooklyn and he'll probably end up in Brooklyn. And I was like, John, you're off your fucking rocker. There's no way they're taking the poo-poo platter of the Nets. And I thought that would include Dinwiddie. They didn't even
Me
have to.
too.
Jesus Christ. Houston Houston sold twice, literally. And yeah, I don't know. I can't. Bad management, bad asset management.
It is. But going back to the trades, I'm with you on the Bulls. I didn't like that move because I thought it was, first of all, I didn't think the timelines of Vucevic and Zach Levine kind of match up. Isn't like Vucevic like 30, 31 or something like that? And
Yeah,
Zach is like 26. So like
I was
I
gonna
didn't think
say
that
25, 26.
yeah, so I didn't think their ages their timelines matched up. I don't think the ceiling of that team is really that high. I mean, they can score a bunch, but like you said, they've been giving it up on the other end, and they've lost the last 3 games those two have played in, including I think it was a blowout to the Spurs the other day. So, I mean, yeah, it's too early to tell, but at the same time, you kind of can see where it's going. Um, like a lot of those other teams that have like high scoring duos, they sometimes have complementary defensive role players that are able to kind of pick up that slack a little bit, or they're able to just straight out outscore the other teams. But with Vucevic and Zach LaVine, I don't see them as like a duo that's gonna like outscore teams crazy like a Dame and CJ can.
Yeah, like I
So
remember in the bubble, the Blazers were so shit on defense and they were just putting up enough points every single night to
yep,
squeak out the wins.
yep,
Like Levine and Vucevic are not shooting the lights out like that, bro.
they're not.
It's not happening. And I love Levine, but I also want him to fail miserably in Chicago so that in 2022 he comes begging Don Leon for a 2-year. Let's give Levine a 1+1 max deal. He'll decline the player option, and then we just go get Booker. Fuck it.
I'm
Let
with you on
Levine be the
that.
tie over. Let Levine be the tie over guy. Screw it. We got to get someone.
Another move that I liked though was that was kind of low key was Denver acquiring JaVale McGee, because
Yeah,
I didn't think that having Hartenstein in their rotation was doing anything for them. Sure, he's a
he's
young
yeah.
center
That's
with
right.
like
They
promise,
sent him to Cleveland.
but
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I get that he's a young center with like promise and whatnot, and like you're like
They've
hoping
been
that he
saying
can
that
develop.
for a couple years though. To be honest, like I think he's like 25 now. I don't know how he. I think we're exiting young territory, Sam.
Yeah, yeah, but I think they were hoping that he could develop on the fly with them, and it hasn't worked out. So I think getting someone like JaVale McGee, who's been in those playoff games, who's been a champion on multiple contenders now, so he kind of knows what it takes to get it done, even though he's not one of those like big producers, but he can help them out in that way. And I didn't think they gave up much. I mean, in the Gordon trade, they gave up what was it? Like Gary Harris and RJ Hampton, who RJ Hampton wasn't going to get really significant rotation minutes if anyone wasn't out. And a first
Yeah,
round pick that's probably going to be in like in the middle towards the end of the end of the first round. So I think it was worth it getting Aaron Gordon and JaVale McGee, who instantly makes them better.
for sure. I liked the Gordon deal for them a lot. My instant reaction was that Gordon needed a new place to be,
Yep.
and Murray and Jokic are not the worst guys to go team up with. Porter as well. Um, Jeremy Grant replacement
Yep.
might just do the job and have them really in a good spot to be looking at at least a second round appearance. Probably conference finals, knowing how good Jokic has been this year and just is. But the Nuggets are a team that no one goes into the playoffs being like, I think the Nuggets are
Yep.
they're gonna be the dark horse. Like
And they always end up being it.
no one ever sees it. And this year, Jokic was playing super well. They had lost Grant; it was noticeable. Now they get a power forward again. So we'll see how this goes for them. I think it should pay off.
Yeah, and one other move that kind of like confused me just a little bit was the Toronto Raptors, their moves that they made. It was like they were buying and selling with their moves in a way, because they sold off Terrence Davis and Matt Thomas for like second round picks or whatever it was. And then they brought on Gary Trent and Rodney Hood, which I felt like was kind of a buying option in a way, even though they sold off Norm Powell. So that move kind of
Yeah.
confused me. What did you think about that move?
I mean, to think through it from Toronto's perspective, if they didn't see Thomas and Davis as well, they needed a roster spot to take on because they only sent Powell for Trent and Hood, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I guess you could say one of those was just for the roster spot. I get moving on from someone like Davis who's had like off court stuff,
Yep.
and getting a pick for it. So to create that spot and then to make that deal, giving up the last season of Powell and then the ability to pay him in exchange for the ability to pay Trent now this summer, and also get Rodney Hood. I mean, like, all right, like if the Raptors think that Trent is going to be better than Powell long term, which I don't think is a bad bet. I get it. Don't pay Powell, pay Trent instead. They got Hood in the deal as well. It's just it comes down to that. It comes down to that, and this just all reminds me that they should have traded Lowry so we would have a better idea of
Their
what
direction.
their future might look like. But man, Philly not putting the
They dropped the ball.
stuff on the table. Jeez, man, I really wanted them to not get. I really wanted them to get Lowry. I wasn't huge on Simmons for Harden. Like, obviously, you do that. Like, Harden and Embiid would wreak fucking havoc. But like Lowry, Simmons, Embiid just would have been so fun in
Yep.
Philly. Especially, I love Lowry. So, and then I love Joel Embiid, and I have a Ben Simmons jersey. I have an Embiid jersey. I love those two as well. So that would have been a great trio for me to get to see play out there in Philly. But they didn't pony up the assets for any of the big names that happened to be available that they were interested in. I, I'm not going to freak out yet. Morey
Yeah.
just got there. Maybe he didn't want to feel rushed into anything, and he did make offers, just didn't want to force it.
But we'll
I
see
get
come playoff time.
buy some job security. It's just like, I would have done it. I would have just done it. Just go all in.
Yeah, I mean, why not? Especially this year
Embiid is
with
so
everything being
good.
so weird.
Just put faith in Embiid in this turnaround season for him. Not, just turn around in terms of like motivation, fitness. Like he looks different out there this year in a really positive way.
Yeah, and I mean, with the way everything is so weird and unpredictable this year, if you go all in, maybe it pays off because everyone else seems to be going all in a way.
Yeah, I think it's worth. I think it would have been worth the shot for them.
Let's move on towards. So speaking of trades, there was one trade that kind of caught everyone weirdly by surprise, which was the JJ Redick trade because JJ Redick was kind of expecting, and we kind of all were expecting either a buyout or a trade to a team up northeast, whether it be Philly, Boston, New York, or Brooklyn. That did not happen. And we heard about why it did not happen, and we heard about why JJ Redick was I guess he didn't report to the Mavs for a while, I guess. So I guess maybe he was like, I don't know what it was, whether he was just upset or like he wasn't gonna report to them, or I don't know what it was, but he didn't report to them for a while. He is going to report to them tomorrow in New York for the Knicks game. And he explained that basically he and David Griffin were talking for a while, and David Griffin had made promises to him, basically saying that he was going to either trade him to a team up northeast, or at
Yeah,
least trade him to a team that would probably buy him out, or
like
he would buy him
KC
out
did with Leonard.
himself. And what didn't happen is,
Any
I
of
mean,
those things.
exactly. And he got traded to Dallas
Any of
all
those
the way
things.
west. So, I mean,
I just JJ seems unhappy, and that's enough. Like they fucked up. Aaron Mintz, dude. You don't fuck with Aaron Mintz. Come on. That's CAA. We know enough about that. We know
yeah.
how many clients they have. Griff, as he's so lovingly called, just really fucked up, to be honest.
Yeah, my stance on it was okay, yeah, everyone keeps saying, oh, JJ's not a star, or he's not the caliber of player that you make promises to, or he shouldn't be acting out as such. And my stance on it has always been like, if you're going to make a promise to a player, like, don't do that in the first place, because you know you're never going to be able to hold it up, because this is a business and you're going to always make what's best for you and not for the player. So like it's similar to like how I felt about the DeMar DeRozan thing. I was like, sure, maybe DeMar DeRozan isn't the caliber of player you make that promise to. Maybe some people thought at that time, but like at the same time, don't make a promise to a player because you know you're gonna do what's best for the team, and you traded him for Kawhi Leonard, and it got you guys a championship. So like in the end, like just don't make promises. But if you are gonna make a promise, it looks bad on you when you don't hold it up, because
Yeah, like
now now
why did he
JJ's like now JJ's like, oh, my agents are probably never gonna do business with a front office like this again because you guys don't know how to keep your word, blah blah blah. And it's like, see, now you're about to lose a whole bunch of clients and a whole bunch of players because you doing stuff that looks bad like that. And JJ's a well respected vet in the league. A lot of people like him. He's a player that you may need on your playoff team. Who knows? He could hit a couple spot threes for you. Like, you never know. So it's like you just don't do stuff like that.
For sure. Like I said, you just don't you don't mess with that agent. That if you're gonna do something like this, like you do it to a player who has some like it's like a bench warmer. Like you could make the argument like, oh, JJ is not a star, but he had a promise made to him, like by his boss. Like his boss was like, yeah, like you're getting relocated, by the way, like. And like imagine you work at an office and your boss like, yeah, I got to move you to another city. You're like, can I please be near my home in any of these locations that you can accommodate? He's like, yeah, I got you. Or I'll just like buy you a ticket myself. Then just
Yeah.
ghost you. just,
Yeah.
just like, man, just
And
ships you
like
off to Utah and ghosts you. Like ships you. It's like, Dallas is in Utah, but it's not. It's just not where you wanted to be. It's not where JJ
it's even
Redick wanted
further
to
away
go
from his
ball. So
family. So it's like and
doesn't
then
make sense to me.
like what did you do it for? James Johnson and like West I one doing a
That's the
second
other
round
thing.
pick.
That's the other thing. Like, you needed that second rounder that bad. Like that deal came across your table, and you looked at that and said, "I just can't turn this down. Fuck it. I got JJ dirty." Like really, like that was not the package to do that for either. Like it's just so not understandable.
And then like this goes back to my whole thing about like Griff in general, like as the people like to call him. He what I mean, like he is like everyone is just like stroking his balls on Twitter and like calling him king and like saying, "Oh yeah, it didn't matter what he said to JJ." And it's like, dude, Griff hasn't like if he's just a lottery merchant who just got lucky because LeBron came home. Like if LeBron doesn't come home, he's throwing out a lineup of Kyrie, Dion, Wiggins, Thompson, and Bennett. Like he
Oh
hasn't
my
done
god.
anything special in this league. So I don't know why he's being hailed as like some great GM and some great front office dude when like he all he's done is won the lottery a bunch of times and like what does he turn that into?
I was like upset we didn't get him, and now I'm like, man, if Steve Mills is what it took, as Terry's been saying, like Steve Mills had to be here for us to end up with RJ and Leon and all this, like that it was the prophecy.
It was worth
Um,
it.
to me, it's like we could have had Griffin, but Mills decided to Tim Hardaway Jr. Um, and now I'm almost like, what the hell would Griffin have done here? Like, what would he have done with their young players? Like he had Zion and was like, yeah, this guy needs Steven Adams.
And Eric Bledsoe.
I don't. It was just really weird, man. Really, it's like he doesn't know what he's doing. Like I don't know. He's just like gets racking up picks. I have no idea what else is going on there.
I mean I've never understood him and like the love for Sam Presti as well. They're just like Sam Presti's
Nah,
just a
Presti I
collector's
fuck with.
but Presti's just a collector of picks. Like he had James Harden, Russell Westbrook, Kevin Durant, and didn't do anything. So like, is he gonna get another set of MVPs and do nothing again? Like, you gotta
I
cash
get what you
those.
mean.
Yeah, you
I
gotta
just think
turn that
like
into something.
I think uh it's tough. I think just like part of the job is like that moving on from start, and like he parlayed all those stars into like such good future
Assets.
assets that um you can't be upset with the overall work, but the point is they never won a ring, so I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
I just think like it's different. Like Griffin, I don't know. I don't get the sense that Presti is like worsening his teams by thinking he's like big braining and making them better. Like Griffin's kind of dumb, dude. Like he does some dumb shit. Like of course relative to other NBA GMs, not like in general. Like
Yeah.
but like what the hell? You're like, what's going on out there? Presti, it's like, all right, they got something going on there. It's not going super well every single year, but they definitely got something going on. Where Griffin's, what the hell?
And speaking of Presti, I do want to speak on the Al Horford and the Oklahoma City Thunder situation.
Oh yeah.
Cause this kind of like it pissed me off because it's like when New York told Joakim Noah to stay home, the NBA Players Association threw a fit, and it was a media nightmare just because they told Joakim Noah stay home.
Right.
OKC tells Al Horford, you're not playing anymore, but like still train with the team and do whatever, like be with the team and whatnot. And it's just crickets, nothing. Everybody's like, oh, they're just tanking. It's cool. Like I just I just
Leave
don't
him
I just
alone.
understand that and like the double standard there. Like it's ridiculous.
I just what the media, man, the imbalances, because it's not. I feel like Knick fans are always like, hey, we want like the same coverage that other teams get, and then like the response is always some like straw man of like an extreme. It's like, no, like just like pay attention to shit like this. Like pay attention
Yeah.
to shit. We're not saying to make as big of a deal out of it as you do with the Knicks. We're saying to fuck off with the making a big deal out of everything the Knicks do stuff, and actually pay attention to stuff like this. Just pay attention to everything, and not just the big market teams.
Exactly. And it's like what Sam Hinkie did, he got thrown in NBA GM jail for it and he can't come back to the league anymore, basically. Like
I it's frustrating. You know, there are a couple things going on, and we got to get to the buyouts as well, which is another league issue. Um, just pay attention to shit like this, the media, and the league should. The league has fined people for tanking.
yeah, they have.
So where the hell is the man?
I don't understand.
They're gonna hand him Cade.
Yeah, of course, because he goes to Oklahoma State and it's just like makes the perfect sense. So and we're gonna have Cade and
So
SGA in the
frustrating.
backcourt and can't do anything about it.
Jesus Christ. Cade, like SGA off ball is like what? Like, could you imagine, bro?
It's
If
gonna be
oh my god,
basketball beauty.
could
Yeah.
you imagine? Like, we had RJ Barrett out on the wing, we had Julius and Mitch down low, we had like Bullock out on the other wing just shooting, and fucking SGA was our like lead ball handler. I just like SGA playing off someone like Randall with the wing like RJ is just like
Would have been
basketball
beautiful.
sex. I don't know. And then oh, Cade. Oh, Cade and SGA would be something, dude.
It's gonna happen. It's either there or it's gonna be Houston because Houston traded away James Harden, so they have to reward them with something.
San Antonio in the hunt to get a are they positioned this year to have a random lottery win?
I don't know.
I feel
Depends.
like that could be something the NBA does too. Give Pop someone to go ramp things up with for his final couple years.
Yep. And of course, you can't forget about the Magic now. The Magic have two first rounders this year. So
Oh yeah. I don't know if whoever has the chance to get Cade will give that up though. I doubt it.
if they
I
do
don't know
that,
what
oof,
I don't
that's an
know what
all-time
I don't
blunder.
know I don't know what package makes that work. Like that offer has to start with like 4 first round picks. Like to have him on his rookie deal. Jesus Christ, that that's a lot, man. It's a lot of talent for a very small amount of money.
It is. And speaking of the buyout market, okay, so
Yeah,
we had quite a
couple
bit of
signings.
names. Quite a bit of names, a couple signings that kind of ruffled the feathers of NBA Twitter. We had LaMarcus Aldridge signed with the Brooklyn Nets. Um, and then a couple hours later, Andre Drummond signed with the Lakers. Thank goodness he didn't sign with the Knicks. Um,
I did not want to
so
be either.
yeah, um, the buyout market is kind of just like a ring chaser's shopping
Yep.
spree, basically. Like
Yep.
any team that's trying to get a ring, just take a peek in the buyout market and just grab a couple still somewhat talented guys on veteran minimums who should probably be getting paid more than that. And I mean, I have like the buyout market was never like this, like even when the Warriors were like playing
Yeah, they
their
were getting like David
basketball.
West.
Like
The
even when
Nets
they
just
got
got
David West was like,
Griffin. Nets just got Griffin and Aldridge for 2 veteran minimum. Like I don't know, man.
and these guys should at least be on like $10 million contracts at the least, maybe. Because they can still play. Like Griffin's still dunking, like he still hasn't lost that ability. So it's like, and he can still pass out the post and like shoot a decent amount. And LaMarcus Aldridge, I mean, he's making his Nets debut right now, and he's looked
5 assists.
okay. Yeah, like he's out there dishing and stuff. So he's like
Offense wasn't the question. I think guys like Blake and
defensively,
LaMarcus are the exact guys who could go to a team like Brooklyn, get plugged right in, and because they're veterans who have been very good at basketball and understand where they are in their careers now, like those are the guys that can totally contribute when you have fucking Kyrie, Harden, and KD to take pressure off them. The thing is on defense, like those three guys need that defensive help. They don't need help scoring, bro.
yeah. That's why I never understand any of the moves that the Nets have made, because none of their moves have been made to bolster their defense, which is weird because that's the place they need help the most. And especially with rim protection. I mean, they have Nicholas Claxton for that, but are you really relying on Nicholas Claxton
And
in
he's
the
good.
playoffs? He's good, but like, are you going to rely on
But
him in the playoffs?
but but yeah.
Yeah, you're not going to rely on him in the playoffs. So it's like, and then I mean, everybody's made a big deal of like each of the signings that the Nets made, and this is not like an anti-Nets thing, but it's like more of like an anti like I don't even want to say parody thing. It's more of like just an anti. I don't even know what it is anti, but it's just like these guys, like teams need to do a better job of like holding on to guys that are like past their prime on like these kind of deals. Like the next CBA discussions are going to be crazy because there's going to be something that involves this, because I know owners are going to be pissed about the way teams are able to just let go of guys that are still functional and just let them go wherever they please, whether it be a title team or whatever, and be still a contributor for much
Right.
less money and still being paid by the other team. Like Blake Griffin is being paid to help the Nets now, like,
He gave up 13 milli, which is a lot, but
but it's
yeah,
nothing
you're right.
compared to his main
And
contract.
I mean, at the end of the day, I look at this like the NBA uh going around at like what analogy am I going with here? Like like Hunger Games type. As you only got like 6 contestants or rather, as you only have 16 contestants out of the original 30 left in the Hunger Games, like kind of you go around, pick up like the best weapons,
Yep.
best scrap weapons from everyone that already died, and hand them
Yep.
out to the people still
That's
alive. It's like,
exactly
oh,
what it is.
everyone's gonna be watching this final battle, so might as well arm you guys up. Like it's to get the TV ratings up. It's to have better players on the court in the playoffs. It's very simple, and it's why it's not going to change anytime soon.
Of
I do
course
think
not.
it's worth talking about though because it's an imbalance in the league in favor of big market teams as usual. That I'm not going to be complaining too much about once the Knicks start benefiting from
Oh
it.
yeah,
But
definitely.
as someone who is now in a state to speak objectively about it, I will do so.
Yeah. I mean, once the Knicks are able to like grab guys off the buyout market, then I won't have a problem. But since they aren't, I will complain about it. Um Lastly, before we wrap things up, the MVP race. Speaking of the Nets, a lot of push has been being backed for James Harden for MVP. And I'm just of the mindset of this guy quit on his team in the beginning of the season. Whatever situations, he still was not professional about it and like threw his teammates under the bus, and to the point where they I think wanted to fight him if he came into practice the next day. So I mean that
Yeah.
situation was just like messy altogether. And then like he's on a super team. Like what happened to the rules of the Golden State Warriors where Katie and Steph they canceled each other out so they can't be in MVP voting. So it's like these dudes are on super teams. Like I would say Kevin Durant and Kyrie are better than him too, or maybe Kevin Durant is better than him, but like the supporting cast that they have, he's not really doing a carry job yet. Sure, he gets his numbers, but like it's still a good amount of contribution from all the other role players. You got Joe Harris who's shooting like what, like 50% from three or something like this.
Yeah.
You got like Nicholas Claxton in the paint, who's like a very versatile defender. You got LaMarcus Aldridge now, and they had Blake Griffin, who has been functioning pretty well, and you got like Landry Shamet. Like you got all these guys. He's not
Yeah,
playing with a bunch of bums like he was in Houston for a very few amount of years, and when you could have made this argument, he's on a very talented team. Like I would, I would, I would probably have Jokic as my MVP right now because Embiid is out, but Embiid's been my guy the whole year.
yeah. Jokic is a great pick right now. Um, However, Embiid was definitely my pick before he got hurt. So I
Yeah,
don't know. Got to see how soon Embiid can make it back if he can
I
ramp
think he's
up
supposed to
that
debut this
campaign.
Saturday. He's supposed to come back.
Yeah, that would be great. Um, See if he has enough time left in the rest of the year to ramp that campaign back up. Because as I said earlier, would love to see it.
Yeah, and one thing I think that's being overlooked in this MVP race is Giannis. Giannis has been putting up like there was a streak where he was like going like 30 plus like almost every night for like 8 straight games or something like this. And like if this was any other year, he would have been like the leading contender for MVP. But I think it's the past playoff failures are being used against him in the MVP race, which is hilarious because the guy who everyone's pushing, James Harden, has had a number of playoff failures that everyone seems to forget about every single regular season. And I just find that hilarious because the double standard there is just crazy because Giannis can have like he's like 26 and he's had like a couple playoff exits that were like I don't even think they were that embarrassing to be honest. Last year was probably the most embarrassing because they lost in 5. But other than that, they lost to the team that won the finals the year before.
Right.
So like I don't understand where this idea of like Giannis being a playoff failure and like James Harden just gets hailed as this hero every single year.
Giannis, Harden needs to be honest. I think they are just both in a spot where they need someone else. Like neither of them is going to win by themselves. Giannis, if he gets like a real primary man, watch out.
Yeah.
He's going to win the chip because in the playoffs, if Giannis is playing off a primary, oh, we're so fucked.
Oh
The league
yeah.
is so fucked. Like, please God, never let like prime Ben Simmons and Giannis, who at
Oh.
least like one of the two develops a shooting ability, and then they just surround them with 3-and-D guys. Like, never let that become a thing. Never let Booker and Giannis team up. None of that. Like, we are
Oof.
so fucked. Booker and Giannis would be modern Kobe and Shaq, and I don't think that's crazy because I
I
think
don't think that's crazy either.
I'm not a huge Giannis guy, but that's because he's on his own right now. Like I understand that if he gets to play off a really good primary, he's going to get that like stimmy in my power rankings across the league because that's just it opens up a whole different aspect of offense for his team.
And Giannis is like what 26 or 27, like he's still
Uh
pretty
huh.
young. So it's like I don't understand where this idea of him being a playoff failure has like kind of bumped him out of MVP contention now. I don't know if it's voter fatigue of not wanting to give him 3 straight or if it's the playoff failures, but like James Harden is in contention every year after every postseason we're like, all right, next season the regular season doesn't count for James Harden, blah blah blah, and then the next season comes and everyone's like James Harden for MVP. Oh yeah, it's like what? Like I don't understand where this comes from, and it just like pisses me off because it's like Giannis is like he has a chance to make history, and he would rightfully so be able to if he was getting the proper recognition. And I just think that that's
Yeah,
just wrong.
I think what Harden does is like super impressive, but if he were in the playoffs losing because like he was losing, I'd be like, all right, he just can't get it done. He needs another guy. Like for me, it's like he just stands off to the side. Like he like hides from the moments in the playoffs. You know, that Lakers series was really rough to like watch him in the last few minutes of the games there. So I'm not just gonna be like, yeah, Harden deserves all the like Harden needs another guy to play with, but like he had Chris Paul. I know Chris Paul got hurt
And
that
then he
year they
chased
made
them
a
away.
that big run, and then he got rid of him
Yeah.
for someone worse, who he then also, you know, once Westbrook found out that Harden was gonna be gone because Harden was like, all right, I'm done with Houston. Then Westbrook was like, all right, let me get out of here too then, and then Westbrook got out of there first, right? You got traded to
Washington.
Washington.
Yep.
And that was before the Brooklyn deal even went down. So, an interesting career trajectory so far for Mr. Harden. Just doesn't seem to have that winning factor to him. The reason I don't know, and whatever can point to a lack of just like dedication or motivation to like win actually, but whatever the reason is, like he doesn't do it. He doesn't do the winning at the high level despite the really really crazy high level play.
Yeah.
I'm definitely like Giannis has much more of a future. Like I think Giannis is definitely in a better spot right now if these are the two we're comparing, going forward especially.
Yeah, I also don't want the listeners to think that we forget about Dame. Of course, the numbers that he's been putting up, he's been going crazy. And of course, before the injury, LeBron was doing a somewhat okay job of keeping the Lakers afloat without AD. So those two are also in contention.
Oh yeah, for MVP, Dame and you got to have the big men, Jokic, Embiid, and then Giannis. You can look at
Mm-hmm.
LeBron and Harden. Like look at them. Go ahead.
Take a glance.
Analyze the cases and then move on. Uh, I don't disagree with Dame. People, when you get out of the top 5 of MVP candidates, you have to start picking guys that like don't surefire deserve it. Like people are like, oh, Dame is not an MVP. Like, dude, if he's the 6th best candidate right now, like that's, I don't know, maybe that's too high. Maybe that's only a little too high, to very high. But I just think any top 10 guy in the MVP rankings having a freaking great year. So
Yeah, for sure. Before we get out of here, let the people know where they can find you, Kris.
Oh, of course. On Twitter, Kris Pursiainen. To a Tolerable Degree is the pod. And I do live streams at halftime and Knicks games. And of course, then on Knicks Film School.
Make sure you check Kris out. And if you are listening or watching on the YouTube channel, make sure you subscribe. And also check out the podcast website and my blog. I put out some Knicks writings a couple months ago. I'll have something in the works again as we head towards playoffs. So make sure you check those out, and we're out of here.
Thank you.